Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the $1 Million Case Study, where we're launching and scaling a physical products business to $1 million in revenue. I'm your host, Greg Mercer. I'm joined by my co-host, Rolando in real life.
I know. Enjoy some coffee with Greg here, chatting it up.
By the end of today's episode, you're going to understand exactly how to do the branding, trademarks, and packaging for your product. And if you stay till the end of today's episode, we're going to announce a new contest that we're launching that we're really excited about. You're not going to want to miss it.
Definitely stay till the end.
So let's get started with talking about one of the lesser important subjects, which are store names. This is a question we get often, and I want to address it since this episode's about branding. And what we're referring to is the Amazon store name. Customers can see this. However, to be honest, most customers don't know it's there and don't really care about it. I doubt this affects anyone's purchasing decisions. So when you're thinking about your store name, just understand that one, it doesn't really matter. And two, I would recommend you just make it something generic. It doesn't need to be the name of like your product name or the brand that you're launching under there, because you would prefer to have the flexibility in the future to launch other brands underneath that or sell other types of products. Now, you can always change your brand name. So again, this part doesn't really matter. But for example, our brand name is just called Jungle Creations. It's just a very generic brand name. It's not called Jungle Sticks or Jungle Snugs or any of our product or brand names. We just made a generic name that we could sell anything under. All right. So don't stress out about that one. Just choose a name. The more generic, the better, in my opinion, and be done with it.
We're talking about a store brand name, but does it matter as far as our product? Should we brand our product more succinctly or more uniquely?
Yeah, good question. So the branding of your product is a little more important than the store name, since the store name doesn't really matter. But let's dig into that a little bit deeper. So first of all, especially when you launch your new product on Amazon, and even for a good period after that, no one's going to be going to Amazon searching for your brand, right? People are finding your product because they're searching for the type of product. So for ours, for example, people are going to be searching for keyboard tray or clamp-on keyboard tray. They're not going to be searching for our brand name. They're looking for a product. And on Amazon, this is how the majority of consumers behave. If you go into Keyword Scout and you start looking at search volumes for even big, pretty well-known brands, people aren't normally searching for the brand name. They're typically not searching for Black & Decker. They're searching for cordless drill. And this is just how Amazon works. I think this is the reason so many private label sellers have been successful on Amazon, is because the consumers are just searching for types of products. They're not searching for brand names, okay?
And that good deal.
Yeah, and that good deal. So they search for a type of product, and they look at who gets good reviews with a good price, has nice photos, whatever else. All that being said, you might as well set yourself up for success when creating your brand name, in case in the future, if you decide to take this brand off of Amazon and do influencer marketing and set up your own store and whatever else, okay? Let me give you guys some tips for creating a brand and creating a brand name to hopefully set you up for success for years and years to come. If you were to talk to a branding expert, they would tell you to do this huge, long exercise about discovering your brand and its look and its feel and what it stands for and blah, 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 all these other different types of things, okay? And if you're really into that kind of thing, that's fine. You can do all of that. But from a strictly business standpoint and the type of business that we're doing and the channel that we're taking advantage of, which is Amazon, most of that stuff doesn't really matter. On Amazon, you can't really let all that shine through, but what does still kind of matter is just the name itself. So we're going to be mostly focusing on the brand name itself, even though I understand from a more of a technical or a proper standpoint that like branding goes well beyond just the brand name. All right, Rolando, so talk to us a little bit more about how to find that brand name or how to find a good brand name.
I think the most important element of branding is originality, and you find that a lot in, for example, Google or Twitter. We didn't know these words. They didn't exist in the English vocabulary, but when these companies came up with their brand, it was just a very original term. And today, what do? Hey, I got to Google that, or let me send out a tweet. So I think originality is the most important thing when it comes to branding. And there's tools out there that are great at generating names and creating names. Maybe you might know some off the top of your head. Do you happen to know any?
Two of the tools that I've used before are NameStation or NameMesh. Both of them help to find original names. And if we dig into that a little bit deeper, actually my favorite types of brand names are ones like Jungle Scout, not to pat myself on the back, but it is related to what the product or service or brand does or stands for.
Good point.
But it is an original name. So we chose Jungle Scout because like jungle, Amazon jungle association there. And Scout because it's looking for something, it's looking for products, it's looking for product opportunities on Amazon. So Jungle Scout, it was an original name that nothing else at the time was using, and there's some association with what it does. That's my favorite type of brand name to come up with, and NameStation or Name Mesh can help come up with ideas like that.
Yeah, it becomes very hard to use common words. I think that a lot, because one of the things that you're going to do in your search is look for a domain, look for social platforms that the name is available. So Name Mesh is great because it combines words and just comes up with an original spin on what you originally wanted to work with.
And if we're stuck with ideas or something like our keyboard tray, what we could do is we could search for acronyms or words that are associated with keyboard or tray or office products or something along those lines. And we could use that to help us come up with the brand name. Another little trick that I like to use is using Google's image search. And let me show you how that's done real quick. So you just go to Google, click on images. And for us, we have a keyboard tray. And by looking at images, this helps come up with more ideas that could be inspiring for your particular product. So let's actually just start with keyboard.
A lot of creatives tend to use visual imagery to help inspire and just kind of get those creative juices going. So it's a good point.
Yeah, so I could just be going down this and I could just start to think of words or kind of feelings that come to mind that I could use to help associate with my keyboard tray. From this, I'm seeing lots of kind of like high tech. I'm also seeing lots of different colors. What comes to your mind when you're seeing some of these pictures?
To me, it just, the professionalism, being a, office environment, you can totally see that that's the focal point of a keyboard tray is being productive, working hard. So I think that those are some things that can tie into the name, right? We could start going down that road of its served purpose.
Yeah, and you can just search for different terms, So now I tried keyboard tray, office. I'm just looking for more inspiration here, what we might want to call this thing. So I'm seeing lots of, wood now, and it looks neat and clean. It looks, so you can just kind of be thinking about other words that come to mind or inspire your thoughts to help come up with a brand name.
So this is a great way of getting that started.
Let's look at Name Mesh real quick since we spoke about that.
What's nice about this site is that it gives you several options and it tells you right away which domains are available. And I think that's a very important part. Do you happen to know why you think that a domain may be useful?
Yeah, the domain's useful. One, just for general brand protection. So, you would ideally have your .com domain name so that someone else isn't using it. If someone else is using it, if you were to grow, they'll either try to sell it to you down the road for a larger sum of money, which could be okay, but you prefer to just have that up front. Also, if the .com's available, that's actually also a great indicator that trademark's not taken. Not many people would have a trademark for a term, but wouldn't own the .com in this day and age.
And it's important that at that tier, the .com level, because the .info, the .biz, those are not as important as the .com.
No, yeah, those are just new, TLDs because all the .coms are taking. So right away, I just typed in keyboard tray, which isn't the most creative thing. There's other terms that I could use to call this particular product. And just like in the similar category here, I'm seeing different things like pad tray. I can just continue. Yeah, I can just continue to look down this for fun. Code tray. It looks like there's a lot of different plays on tray. But I could also put in other seed terms to get some other ideas there.
Yeah, you could enter 2 to 3 keywords. Maybe switch out the keywords that you're looking to mesh together. So definitely just have fun with this. I think this is to me, this is the best part, is the most creative part of product development. And so have fun with it.
Yeah, and I like NameStation actually quite a bit. It gives you different options over here like compound words, business names, all these different types, or append keywords. So it tries to put part of two words together. So that can be helpful. You can start to put in different keywords in here, and then it will start to either append those keywords or compound them or something along those lines. So after you've used Google image search, you've found synonyms, you've used tools like NameStation and NameMesh, hopefully by now you have a good idea of what a brand name could be for your particular product. After doing that, I wouldn't quite settle on it before going through a few checks, okay? One is the .com domain name like we just spoke about. .coms are becoming less and less available. However, they're still really nice to have. I would prefer the .coms available just like on the open market. If it's not, you can go to that .com and see if it's for sale. Oftentimes people just register a whole bunch of .com domain names to then sell them down the road. If you can buy it for a few $100, it might be worth it if you're really serious about going all in on this. If not, it might not be worth it. And then you can either just get like a .co or a .io or something else and worry about that down the road.
So when you were looking at Jungle Scout, it was available?
Yeah, Jungle Scout was available.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so Jungle Scout was available when we were looking for it. And so was Jungle Sticks and Jungle Snugs and the other product names that we've had.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's very rare. So
after you've found the .coms or checked to see whether or not they're available, the next thing that I think is pretty important is looking at the trademarks and making sure a trademark for it's not already taken. Now, trademarks aren't required to sell on Amazon, but having a registered trademark does give you the ability to register for brand registry. By having brand registry, it opens up some additional tools that help you just improve the conversion rate on your particular listing. So brand registry is really nice to have on Amazon. It does also give you some additional protections from other people trying to rip off your product.
I think that when I'm doing branding or anything along those lines, I like to begin with the end in mind and think long term and start to realize that I'm not in this for just for the short term. I'm in this for the long haul. So looking at it, picking a good solid brand is very important, especially if you're going to be trademarking it down the road.
So let's go ahead and dig into trademarks a little bit deeper. I think the first thing that we need to be thinking
are you sure you're qualified to talk about trademarks?
Give me a second.
Come on. Hey, look at Greg. There you Gregorio Esquire.
A trademark is a symbol or a word that represents a product or a company. You might be familiar with seeing the little TM superscript or the R with the circle around it. And what those stand for are trademark and registered trademark. So a common misconception is that you have to register your trademark in order to kind of own that mark. And that's not really the case. In the US, it's actually first to use laws as opposed to first to register. So even before you register your trademark, you can still put that little TM at the top of it. And that's saying that you claim that this is your mark and other companies can't use it to represent their product or to mislead customers into thinking that it's that company's name, okay? Now, registering trademarks, after you do that, you can put the little R with the circle around it. That's important for Amazon sellers, and that's oftentimes discussed in the Amazon seller communities just so that you can get brand registry. In order to register for brand registry, you have to have a registered trademark. And to be honest, that's the only reason that there's even much talk about trademarks inside of the Amazon seller community. I guess I should say that one other important thing to consider is that when you're choosing a brand name, it's not already trademarked and it's not already registered as a trademark. So when you're thinking about your brand name and trying to come up with your brand name, I do think it is important to do a trademark search to make sure someone else hasn't already taken that particular trademark. And let me show you how to do that real quickly.
All right, Gregorio Esquire, walk me through this process.
The official website for searching for trademarks in the US is uspto.gov. I'm on that website right now. It's not the best website, but that's all right. After you go there, you click on Search Trademark Database in the lower right-hand side. After clicking on that, then click on Search Trademark Database, and you can just do a basic word mark search. So, for example, if I were to type in here Jungle Scout, which is a registered trademark, then what I see is that it's showing this record and it's showing our company as the owner of that particular trademark. For example, let's pretend we're going to name our clamp on keyboard tray, clamp it on. Then what we can do is we can search for that particular trademark. And for this one, it's not showing that Clamp It On is a full mark that's registered. That did show up, but it's for a different mark, which is Sprout It. A few things to understand or tips to know here is if there are other spellings of the word, then you should search for those as well. An example of this one is Jungle Sticks, all right? We spelled Jungle Sticks S-T-I-X, and when we search in the database here, you see that that one does show up, Jungle Sticks. However, I know before we applied for this trademark, we also needed to search for Jungle Sticks, S-T-I-C-K-S. So when you search for that, you see that that is not a currently registered trademark, but it did show up our spelling S-T-I-X.
Nice. I notice here too, it says live on the one above and then dead on the one below. Do you happen to know anything about that?
Good question. So let's click on this one that's dead. And what we see is that this is dead and it was canceled in 1998. Now, with trademarks, they can last forever. However, if I'm not mistaken, every 10 years, I believe you have to renew them. And at a time frame lesser than that, I think it's 5 or 6 years, you have to kind of like sign an affidavit saying that the mark is still in use. So unlike patents, which do expire after a certain amount of time, you can keep your trademark forever. However, it just needs to be continuously renewed. An example of that would be like Coca-Cola, right? They probably had that trademark around for like 100 years, and we could search for that right now in the trademark database, and we'd see that that is still registered.
So I just get done searching for the phrase in the USPTO.gov site, and I'm all set?
Not exactly. So, wait a second. Now I'm starting to sound like a lawyer. This suit's getting to my head, I think. Let me give you a little bit better answer. I feel better now, man. I'm not really the suit wearing kind of guy, and never take a fake lawyer seriously who's wearing a suit top with shorts and flip-flops. It doesn't work.
Words of wisdom. I love the trademark gear.
That's better, yeah. So one of my favorite resources is noem.com, and another good one is namecheck.com, namechk.com. Both of these will, do a basic trademark search, which is helpful, and they'll also search a whole bunch of social accounts and domain names to see what's taken and what's available. So that's beneficial for you because ideally you have all these social accounts, you go ahead and register them even if you never use them. And it's also actually just another good indicator that no one else with at least a web presence is using that as their trademark. So that's what I like to do. So yeah, if you go to noem.com, let's pretend we're going to call it Clamp It On Keyboard. Pretty bad brand name, but let's just go ahead and check it anyway.
I noticed that you didn't put any spaces in between. Is that how it's supposed to be entered?
Yeah, for this particular one, Noem, that's how you're supposed to answer them. So we can see that a few of them actually are taken. Other ones are showing us it's too long. Let's see, clampitonkeyboard.com is available. It says the trademark is not registered in USPTO government database, which is both solid. We can do the same thing over here on NameCheck. So let's try Clamp It On Keyboard. And again, there's no spaces in between these just because it's checking for domain names and handles and whatever else. So it looks like the .com's available and lots of usernames available through all these different resources. This one, NameCheck doesn't check for the trademark as well, but it's nice for just checking usernames and different social accounts. So yeah, those are both great resources.
All right, so we checked the name on Noem and also on NameCheck. So we haven't touched much on Amazon Brand Registry. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about Brand Registry?
Yeah, so Amazon Brand Registry, this is something that they created a few years ago and relaunched it last year. Some people call it Brand Registry 2.0, but I know Amazon doesn't like that name. But you go in there, you register that a certain trademark or brand is associated with your account, and that gives you some tools that aren't available to people who haven't done brand registry. One of those tools is searching for and reporting people who are either using your trademarks or your copyrighted materials, so that's beneficial. I do think in that portal in the future, they're going to add additional tools for brand owners, which will be nice. And it also gives you access to a few things that are only available for brand owners, like enhanced brand content and like headline search ads. And if you look at a listing that has additional pictures and information below the descriptions, that's the brand, enhanced brand content. So let me show you that. I'm on the Jungle Sticks listing here, and for under the product description section, now you can see I have a bunch more photos and information, and this was created through the enhanced brand content platform. One other advantage of enhanced brand content that I didn't speak about is that instead of using like a UPC or an EAN, which Amazon calls GTINs, instead you can just use your brand's model number for particular products. So then you don't have to worry about getting a UPC from GS1 or any of that stuff.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the product packaging.
This starts to feel a little overwhelming, especially if I'm new to Amazon. Is this required?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked this because the answer to that is no. Brand registry is not required. You do not have to have a registered trademark to be on Amazon, so don't let that slow you down. I just kind of wanted to teach this as part of the process so that you're familiar with it. And down the road, if you decide to take this business pretty seriously, that's when you can think about registering for a trademark and getting access to brand registry. That being said, one thing that is important is I don't want any of you guys to create your brand name that infringes on someone else's trademark. So when you are thinking about creating your brand and your brand name, you're going to want to make sure that's not something that anyone else out there is already using. All right, so that wraps up everything I want to talk about as far as branding and trademark goes. After you've come up with your brand name, a natural progression is to go into packaging and packaging design. And these are kind of like the next steps, and this is going to be required from the factory before they can start, of course, manufacturing your packaging. So let's start off by talking about like general packaging philosophy. Why is it important? Should we spend any time on it? All these different types of things. If your plan, similar to ours, is to exclusively sell on Amazon, then packaging and the way we think about it's a little bit different than if we were selling, say, at Walmart or somewhere else where customers are walking by on the shelves and we're trying to attract their attention to grab our particular product. On Amazon, they're usually not buying because of their packaging. That's not how you attract customers like you would at Walmart or like a retail store, right? So instead, why is packaging important? Well, it's still the first impression that a customer has. So if this is like a higher end product or you're going for like a higher quality or something nice, this is still like the first impression that they get of your product. They open an Amazon box and they see your packaging and just think like when you open like an iPhone, when you see that packaging, it's sweet, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like right away you open it, it's like, dang, this thing's nice. So that's the type of thing you can be thinking about, when you're doing your packaging. Another example would be like on our Jungle Sticks, we're not really going for like this high end or high quality feel. They're bamboo sticks like in a plastic bag, and I think that's okay. So we can like start to think about that when we're thinking about like overall what drives our packaging decisions.
Man, I really wish we had those Jungle Sticks with us right now.
I do too. Dang. Should I go get them?
I think you should, man. I think our viewers want that.
All right, let me grab the camera. Thankfully, the office is only 2 blocks away. However, we are in a rush because I have a meeting in 2 more hours and we got to finish this ahead of time. The rest of our props are in our other office on this floor, so running over there real quick. I feel like people are looking at me funny walking around like this. The bamboo sticks and the tripod don't fit inside of the back pocket. Great, but I have to get home and my boosted remote takes up one hand and the camera and the keyboard tray in the other, which means I gotta make this work. I'd say there is a 80% chance of this stuff falling out on the ride home. I do have a car, it's just really not fun to drive at all. So the whole time I've lived here in Austin, I've probably only driven it about like 5 times, and it's just too slow. And one of my favorite parts about the boosted board is when other traffic is just sitting around waiting, you can kind of go around them. It's much easier to maneuver overall. Oh, made it this far and then it falls off. Good morning. Good morning. All right, we got the goods. My hands are full.
Man, it's about time.
Yo, I look like an idiot riding down the street with all this stuff hanging on my backpack.
Wow, you weren't kidding. I just said the jungle sticks, but it looks like you brought the whole office.
That'd be helpful.
Cool.
All right, so now we can show you guys much better, give you some examples of what packaging looks like and what we've used in previous examples for all this stuff. So we're talking about the jungle sticks, for example. This is a product that I feel like most people wouldn't really care too much about the packaging. I mean, they're buying these things to be bamboo sticks, right? They're using these to roast marshmallows or hot dogs or whatever else. So for the packaging for this product, we did something very simple. And as you can see, it's just a poly bag here. We put one label on here. It gives a cute little recipe. It has the FNSKU on there. And I think we thought, that this would be good enough. Yeah. For the baby towel, this one's a little bit different. We put this, first of all, in a box. Okay, so inside of the box, of course, our towel and our washcloth is inside of there. And this one's a little bit more high-end. We figured that this would be a product that people would often like to give for gifts. For example, like a baby shower, or I don't know, for Christmas, or a one-year-old present, or whatever else. So we wanted this to look a little bit nicer, look a little bit higher end. The competition was also a little bit stiffer on this product, so we wanted to kind of stand out. And I think it's worked. Like if you look at our average product reviews, we do have 5 out of 5 reviews, and a lot of that is just like the initial impression someone gets when they get this package and they open it up. We didn't originally have it inside of this poly bag because the opening inside of the box is less than 1 inch by 1 inch, and we did that on purpose. So it wasn't required to put the poly bag on top. That being said, the factory offered to put it inside of the poly bag for free. So we went ahead and took them up on the offer because the Amazon's warehouses, I believe they are climate controlled, but they're only cooled to like 80 or 90 degrees or something, and I don't think they really control the humidity inside of there very well. So if you want to make sure that like no dust or humidity or whatever else is getting to your product, especially if it's something like a textile, then you might want to think about putting it inside of a poly bag. If you do have a poly bag and the opening's bigger than I think like 4 inches, pretty much just big enough for an infant to put over its head, you do have to have a suffocation warning either placed on the poly bag with a sticker or printed directly on the poly bag. You can just Google suffocation warning, and your factory should be very familiar with printing these types of things on poly bags.
Now, one thing that comes to mind here is that this is in a box.
Yes.
So was that additional? Did you have to pay extra from the manufacturer versus just using the poly bag?
Good question. Yes, you'll want to work with your manufacturer directly to talk about different packaging types, what they're used to using for packaging. That's always a great place to start, and they can probably give you different pricing according to each one, okay? Oftentimes people ask, like, do I need my brand name on my packaging? Is that something that's required? I would recommend to put the brand name on the packaging and the product if possible, because this makes it harder for other people to sell their product on your listing, because it's very clear that like, oh, hey, when I open this competitor's box or whatever else, it's actually a counterfeit item because it doesn't say, this brand name on the packaging. So if possible, I'd recommend to put your brand name on your packaging and your product.
Yeah, and I also noticed that you guys kept it fairly simple in terms of colors. Is there a reason for that?
So one of the in-house designers at Jungle Scout is the one who designed this packaging, but one of the huge benefits about keeping it simple, like we did, this is starting to get a little bit more complex, but in my opinion, simpler packaging design tends to look better. Again, if we look at or we think about Apple packaging, it's very clean, very simple, and that's easier, I think, to do for amateurs. So by leaving lots of white space, by using minimalistic fonts and looks, in my opinion at least, it tends to look better with less skills. So if you guys are watching this and you'd like to design your own packaging, that's what I'd recommend for you. If you don't have any design skills, aren't familiar with using Sketch or Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator or whatever else, then you can hire professionals to do your packaging design for you. If you go to junglemarket.com, that is a marketplace that we've built for Amazon specialists to advertise their services for people like you. So you oftentimes get really good deals there. There's lots of packaging designers on that marketplace. They've all been pre-vetted by our team. And you can, of course, see the reviews that other customers have left on there. Other resources are places like Fiverr or Upwork. They have lots of designers on there to do the work, but they haven't been pre-vetted and they're not Amazon specialists.
Any other tips that are practical for Amazon sellers?
Yeah, there's lots of tips. The first one that comes to mind is the file format that's going to be most traditional and most commonly used. In my opinion, it seems to be Adobe Illustrator as a .ai files. Other ones that may be common are EPS or just PDFs. But what they're looking for here is vector format files as opposed to like a PNG or a JPEG type file. These are the ones that are most common for printers when they're printing. And this is important because, for example, if they're printing this box, how these are printed in mass quantities for inexpensive is they create like plates, at least this is the way I understand it. So we have 3 different colors here. We have the white, the green, and the black. And I guess there's like one plate or one type of screen or something that puts on the white, then puts on the black, and puts on the green. So actually having less colors is oftentimes less expensive. So that again goes back to like simple packaging is generally better. And this also ties in with the reason that they need some of the vector files as opposed to just like PNG or JPEG type files.
Absolutely. And vector files you can stretch out and you don't lose resolution. So that's why they need this type of stuff at the printers.
Yeah, good point. So if all this seems very overwhelming to you, if you're like, whoa, I've never heard of that, I don't have any of these software tools to create this type of packaging, I would probably recommend just hiring someone to do so. You can get people to create packaging for relatively inexpensively. So that's probably what I would recommend. So again, I would just check out Jungle Market and see if you can find a freelancer on there that you would like to do the packaging for you.
All right, so I contacted someone in Jungle Market and I'm just curious now, what is it that I need to provide them or to put on the packaging?
Good question. There's a number of things. The first one that comes to mind is country of origin. So you can see on our packaging that we do have written on here, somewhere on here.
Yep, we're in violation of the packaging.
We do have written on here that it is made in China. Something else we put on here is designed in the USA and made in China. I think we actually ripped that off from Apple. That's what they like to do, like designed in California.
Yeah.
But so that's something, the country of origin is what's required, okay? So if that's made somewhere else besides China, you can put that on there as well. There are different packaging requirements or certification requirements depending on your product type. One that comes right to mind is like lighting or light bulbs or electronics. There's different certifications for these different types of products. I've never found like one good resource or one good website that tells you about all these different requirements. However, a good resource for this is inspection companies. So you can ask like Asia Inspection or V-Trust or one of the other inspection companies to see what's required on the packaging. They're usually pretty familiar with these and pretty familiar with like customs requirements because they're usually like inspecting to make sure that it includes those different certifications. So you can ask them to see what's required on your particular packaging. Another good way to get this information is actually just off your competitors, especially like the more reputable ones. Like if there's some really big brands. So for example, if, like for our keyboard tray, for example, what we could do is, I know like I saw like 3M or some of these other companies also sell keyboard trays. So what we could do is we could order one of their keyboard trays and we could see either on the packaging or on the product what types of little certifications or other information that they have. And this would be a good resource for us to figure out what would be required for this particular type of product since it does vary. You can also, of course, just like Google like package requirements for insert your product type. Sometimes that comes up with good information, sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, there's no like real good central resource that gives you all of the packaging requirements for all different types of products.
I noticed that on the box is also this a UPC barcode? Is there a specific name that Amazon gives?
The dreaded barcode question. All right, so let's talk about barcode philosophy.
Get into it.
All right, so the barcode that I'm showing right here on this box and on my jungle sticks, whatever these things are called, and everything else, this is the FN SKU barcode, okay?
What did you say?
The FN SKU.
Oh, okay, I thought he said something else.
And this is the unique identifier that Amazon uses to be able to scan this barcode and understand in their system what this product is. The FN SKU, so the barcode shown on this packaging, FN SKU, Rolando, is generated from Amazon Seller Central. Now, in order to get this barcode, the FN SKU, you have to register for a listing. And in order to register for a listing, you have to have a UPC or an EAN. This will make more sense, I think, if you look over my shoulder and watch me do this inside of Amazon Seller Central. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Inventory, Manage Inventory. Then I'm going to click on Add a Product on the top right. I'm going to click down here. If it's not in Amazon's catalog, create a new product listing. I know this product's not in Amazon's catalog because this is my new product, right? This is our keyboard tray. We're inventing this keyboard tray. We're creating this brand, so we know it's not on Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and search for keyboard tray, find a category. And these are some categories that they recommend. And I want to find which one's most relevant for my particular product, okay? So I'm going to look through here. For example, this top one's like computer desks. Not really. You know, I don't really want anything in electronics because this isn't like a keyboard. It's a tray, like an office product to hold it.
And if you do get a little confused as to what category you fall under, a good little hack is just look at a competitor's listing.
That's a good point. That is. You can always just look at your competitors' listings and see which one they're using. But I think this one's going to be most relevant for my product. It's inside office products, and it's keyboard drawers and platforms. That seems spot on. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I am now taken to this page, and I'm starting to see some information like product ID, name, brand, et cetera, okay? So the top, these are all important. And we can go ahead and start to fill this out, even though we haven't done the episode yet of talking fully how to create a listing, okay? Right now, what our goal is to put in the bare minimum required to create the listing in order to generate that FN SKU barcode. That's the barcode, remember, that I want to put on my packaging. That's this barcode, and I need this in order to create my packaging. So the top field here, product ID, these are the options that I have. I have an ASIN, which we don't have an ASIN yet. That's Amazon's unique identifier. EAN or UPC, these are two things that we can get off of the internet. Now, things have changed on Amazon recently. Back in the good old days, back when I was young.
The Wild West days.
You used to be able to purchase a UPC or EAN code through a third-party reseller for a big discount. There was a website called like Speedy Barcodes, and there was a whole bunch of other ones. And you still could try to do this if you want. It is going to save you some money. However, Amazon does show you this right away that the product ID is checked against the GS1 database. If your product ID is not registered with them, then your ASIN will be suppressed. And there's some other scary language here, okay? So what we recommend is, like everything, like doing it by the book. We want to keep a good relationship with Amazon, so we want to play by their rules. If you feel like you're not too worried about this and you're not afraid to take on some risk, you could still purchase through one of those third parties. However, you've been warned that the ASIN might be suppressed or whatever else. Something to take into account here is we only need this UPC or this EAN code until we get brand registry.
Good point.
Once we get brand registry, we can change the product ID to something like our model number, okay? But right now, since we don't have brand registry for this new brand, we unfortunately have to use something like the EAN or the UPC, okay? So let's talk about how to get something like a UPC, since this is probably a lot of you guys' first time to do so, and we want to show you how to do so the correct way. So this is the official website to get UPC barcodes, gs1us.org. When you go here, you can click apply for a barcode on the top right, scroll down, read the mumbo jumbo if you want, and then you're going to do the fill out GS1 company prefix application. Click skip right there. You'll be required to fill out all of this information. After filling out your information, go ahead and click next. On this page, you'll be asked how many barcodes you want. And unless you need more than 10, you can go ahead and just click 1 through 10. You can see the pricing down here. Up to 100 costs $750. Up to 10 costs $250. So if you think you're going to have over 10, you might just want to pay the $750, but there's already a pretty significant amount of money.
And what we're referring to here is a standalone product. You just need one UPC per product type, unless you have different variants. Then, of course, maybe would that require a different UPC?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So each variant requires a new UPC. So each color or color size combo, each of those would require a new UPC. You're asked how many UPCs you want for your company or for your prefix. For us, we choose 1 through 10. And as you can see, the initial fee here is $250. So it is a little bit of money required to do this. You'll also see on here the annual fees, $50 per year. You would want to pay that if you want to keep up with the UPCs. Let's say like this business does well and you want to make sure that these UPCs are in good health for years to come, you could pay that. Alternatively though, remember, after we get brand registry, we can change the unique identifier for our product to just like our model number. It no longer needs to be the UPC, at which point it doesn't really matter if you keep these in good health anymore. Again, going back, if you're willing to take on a little bit of risk and not exactly play by Amazon's rules, you can buy one of these barcodes for like $5 off Speedy Barcodes, and then you wouldn't have to pay this $250, but we would prefer just to do the right thing here. After you've been given your UPC from the GS1 system, you're gonna place that into the product ID, select UPC from the list. Then I'm asked to enter the product name, brand name, manufacturer part number. The product name doesn't really matter that much because this can be changed. So for us, let's just say keyboard tray, or we'll say clamp on keyboard tray. For the brand name, this is important because this is harder to change. I've gotten them to change this before by contacting seller support, but it's not easy to do. So I do recommend that you come up with your brand name before filling this out. Let's for now just pretend it's called clamp it on keyboard tray. Terrible brand name, don't use that one. For the manufacturer, you are the manufacturer and it's up to you to come up with the manufacturer part number. So for here, I'm actually just gonna do the same thing as the brand name, clamp it on keyboard tray. For part number, again, this doesn't really matter. This would be for more, let's call them real manufacturers when they have model numbers for all this stuff or part numbers for all this stuff. So for us, let's call it KT for keyboard tray 100. All right, then I do have to put in some offer information. These are brand new and we can change the price later, so it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna put $100. And yes, by default, I'm gonna have the FBA selection. I want Amazon to ship it. After we click save and finish, then you'll see it show up in the manage inventory page. The first thing I do is I select from the dropdown to change to fulfilled by Amazon. The Amazon barcode's correct, so I'm gonna do convert only. Next thing it does is making me add dangerous goods information. No, there's no battery. No, it's not hazardous. Submit, save and continue. So then I go back to manage inventory. On this page, I'm gonna select from the dropdown, print item labels. After that, I'm just gonna click print item labels. Okay. and I am now shown the FN SKU label for my packaging, okay? So this barcode right here, for the purpose of this example, is the barcode that we would put on our packaging. We don't need to put the UPC barcode or the EAN barcode on our packaging. Since we're only selling these goods at Amazon, all we care about is this particular barcode, the FN SKU barcode. So this is the one that'll be printed on our packaging, and this is what Amazon scans when it arrives at their warehouse, and that's what tells their system that this is the clamp-on keyboard tray. It's not important to put this text under where it says clamp-on keyboard tray and new. All you need is the barcode and the ASIN underneath of it, which is the X001, et cetera, okay? So that's the piece that you do need on your packaging in order for Amazon to scan it. And once that's printed on your packaging, you don't have to worry about stickering each individual package. I know that's another common question that we get. Should I print the UPC label and put the FN SKU sticker on top of it? No, don't worry about doing that. Just print this FN SKU directly on the packaging. All right, guys, throughout this episode, we've covered quite a bit of information. So let's go ahead and just do a quick overview or a quick recap. First of all, the store name. End of the day, doesn't really matter. Choose something, move on with your life. The brand name, a little bit more important. Don't get hung up on it too much. Preferably, the .com is available and some of the social accounts are available. Even if you're not going to build a website and social accounts right now, it's nice just to go ahead and register those now, and you can use them a few years down the road if you want. You don't want to use a brand name that's previously been trademarked. A, just because that's not legal, and B, because you do want to get a trademark for this, or you at least want to have the possibility to do it down the road so you can get access to brand registry. Speaking of brand registry, remember it gives you a few extra benefits on Amazon, but it's not required by any means. So keep that in mind. Down the road, you can register a trademark, then get it. For now, you don't need to worry about it. As far as packaging is concerned, this isn't something that people are going to be walking by on the shelf. It doesn't need to grab their attention. So simpler is better. I would work with your factory to see what types of packaging are common for the product that you choose. And if there's something like a box, go ahead and just get the box template from your factory. That's the same template that you can work off of, either to do the designs to yourself or to hire a professional off somewhere like Jungle Market to do the packaging requirements for you. I recommend printing the FN SKU barcode on your packaging. Do not use the UPC or the EAN barcode on your packaging. Remember, this way you don't have to put any stickers over it. And this is the barcode that Amazon wants to see for them to scan, for them to recognize it in their system. In order to get this barcode, the FN SKU barcode, you do need a UPC. So that's what the UPC is good for. And if you want to play by Amazon's rules, which we recommend, you do need to get the UPC from GS1. A lot of acronyms we're using here, isn't it? Feel free to rewatch it if you need to.
Pop quiz.
So the UPC is needed in order to get this, like we just showed you when you create the Amazon listing, which we'll have another episode that goes in deeper about all the details for creating the Amazon listings. As far as what else to put on your packaging, like legal requirements or any certifications, the best resources for that are either from an inspection company like Asia Inspection or VTrust, or just ordinary competitors and see what else they have on their packaging. Then you can read and Google more about those different packaging requirements. General rule of thumbs for creating packaging designs, the simpler the better, preferably not too many colors. I do recommend putting the brand name on the packaging and the product. And that's about it. Anything else I forgot as far as branding and packaging?
I think you've covered it all. I think now it's time to share our action items. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. We said if you waited to the end of this episode that we'd give you some more information about a contest we're running. So Rolando, spill the beans, man.
All right, Freedom Builders, we are super pumped because you're going to be participating in naming our next product. So we want you to get those creative juices flowing and name this guy here. We want you to be able to come up with a creative name for this. Greg, what is in store for them and how do they do this?
Drop your brand names in the comment section below and we'll be choosing our favorite to one, be our brand name, and two, we're gonna give you guys a prize for helping us select it. So you guys are probably a lot more creative than what we are, and we love for you guys to get involved. So drop in the comment section below what you think the brand name should be for our keyboard tray.
And don't forget to head over to junglescout.com/MDCS4-7 to download your copy of the workbook for today, where Greg, he went through and outlined everything you need to do to get that much closer for you launching your product. By the end of you completing your action items for the week, you will have a brand and you'll be ready to hit Amazon and start selling.
All right.
Think that sound exciting? I mean, who doesn't want to sell? Let's get going.
Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're enjoying the $1 Million Case Study, and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Take care. Bye.
Keep crushing it, Freedom Builders.